Good, good evening, everyone. I wish to offer a warm welcome to everyone here on a fine evening. We have all gathered here to witness a webinar on the currently prevailing topic that is important for all of us to understand: drugs and young minds. This webinar is organized under the NSS unit of IFIM College. I welcome Dr. N. Venugopal as the resource person from Department of Psychology, IFIM College. Dr. N. Venugopal has over 14 years of teaching experience in the field of psychology. He specializes in the field of clinical psychology with 10 national and international research publications under his belt. He's here with us to grace our intellects. I would also like to welcome Mr. Ramu and Professor Venkatesh BB. A hearty welcome to all the students and faculty present. Now, I would like to introduce. I'd like to welcome Venugopal sir to the dais.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening. Very good evening. So, on behalf of, I think it's my primary duty to welcome you all on behalf of the NSS unit of IFIM College. Okay. I personally welcome Dr. Ramu sir, Registrar, IFIM Thomas College, to this session. So, thank you very much. And I personally welcome Professor BB Venkatesh, Head Student Service Community. Thank you, sir. And I welcome you all to this session, all NSS volunteers and future NSS volunteers to this session. And I welcome all my BA students, other students from other programs, and I welcome all the non-teaching staff. Okay, guys, let's start with a question. Why this drugs and young minds, the topic, why these drugs and young minds are very relevant in these days, very present days. Why? The question, we try to answer this question at the end of the session. The question I have thrown you is like, why this topic, the drugs and young minds, are very important. So in this session, we are going to have 3 segments of this session. First, we learn what are the drugs actually. The very popular drugs. What are those drugs? And what is the reason behind this? Why youngsters are plunging into use of these drugs? Why? What could be the cause? And in the third part, we try our best to understand for all our parents and for us, how to identify a drug. Very important. How to identify a drug with certain facts. We go ahead with the session. See, drugs. So actually, these drugs are known as psychoactive drugs. Psychoactive drugs. So psycho means it is all about higher mental processes, from your thinking to from your learning, from your intelligence to from your decision making, from your judgment to critical thinking, problem solving, everything, comprehending, perception, attention, everything comes under psychological aspects. Psychoactive drugs. See? So we have very famous popular drugs here. Narcotics. I think most of you guys are aware of these drugs, no? Names. Very popular among youngsters nowadays. See here, narcotics, sedatives, stimulants, anti-anxiety drugs, painkillers, hallucinogens. One recent survey shows around 28 million. See here, 28 million people worldwide, they are depending on such as drugs such as glue. You know the glue? We use the glue is a drug. If you snort, I'll tell you how. There are 3 ways to induce a drug into our body. All right, snorting is one type. Snorting, that is, that ganja, hashish, heroin, cocaine, marijuana, everything, you keep the drug, a bit of drug on your first here, you do like this, you snort, so that the kick, the smell of a drug would reach your brain and you get that highness. Second one is skin popping. Okay, injecting a liquefied drug just beneath your skin. It will get along with the blood, then reaches the brain, and then you get that euphoric state called highness. That is, once an individual take a drug, he'll be like floating in the air, feel very light. The best moments of his life, they become very good people in the world. The third is very dangerous, mainlining. Liquefied drug, injecting liquefied drug into your veins so that you get that highness very quickly, right? So these are the ways. See, by snorting itself, around 28 million people, just imagine. And in India, around 10 million people in a year, that too the age range is like 18 to 30, between 18 to 30 age range, people are becoming drug dependents. Okay, they're becoming drug abusers. Right. Next. So these are the classification. I'm just showing this classification for your information. This sedatives is alcohol. You people, the term used boozing. Boozing is very popular term among you guys, right? Alcohol, boozing. See, barbiturates like Seconal, Nambitol. So we have stimulants like cocaine, amphetamines, etc. Narcotics, opium and its derivatives, that is heroin and codeine. Okay, and then psychedelics or hallucinogens, cannabis, marijuana, hashish, then mescaline, LSD, PSD, psychogenic mushrooms, magic mushrooms. You use this term, magic mushroom. That is what. Next. So now let's see, in this segment we try our best to understand what are narcotics. You must understand this, right? What are narcotics? See here, narcotics, it has been used for 5,000 years. It has a history of 5,000 years. Imagine narcotics. See, when you go through the mythology also, there are books on Meluhas and all, no? World of Meluhans and all. There's a trilogy book. So there they mention the hero, our Hindu mythology hero, Shiva, is a barbarian, and he is the one who started with this drugs and all, right? We can trace this use of drug over more than 5,000 years. See here, opium resists poison and venomous bites, causes cough, epilepsy, asthma, etc. Galen in 130 to 201 AD, he mentioned. That means we have 1,000 years of history for this drug use, right? See here, it slows down your CNS, action of CNS, central nervous system. When you take this, consume this narcotics, it actually depresses your CNS, central nervous system. And it's a mixture of 18 alkaloids, opium, morphine. This is one of the narcotics. Morphine is named after a Greek god, Morpheus. That means god of sleep. If you take morphine, you feel like a dizziness will be there, very sleepy, very lazy, that numbness will come, nausea will be there, right? All these things. And then next please. These are stimulants. Next. Yeah. So cocaine, it's a plant product discovered in ancient times. There are types of cocaine. This is crack cocaine. Crack cocaine. It's a form of cocaine, hydrochloride, free base for smoking. Most of the youngsters use this. Joints, weeds and joints. So in certain pawn shop, in tea shop, around the schools and colleges, very famous joints. And in Vivipuram, we used to find one auntie shop there. People used to get joints and weeds in the form of this crack cocaine. Okay. And the opiates, it is sniffing through snorting, injecting or swallowing. People induce the drug into their body, right? And once you take this drug, you will be under this euphoric state for 4 to 6 hours. Can you imagine? 4 to 6 hours of euphoric state will be there. I've already told you that euphoric state is a kind of psychological elevation. Like once an individual takes this, these guys thinks they are the best people, the most perfect, where they are very happy, flying there, very light, their cognitives are like depressants. It obviously it makes our CNS depressed, right? And then we have, after this effect is preceded by headache, right? Then dizziness and restlessness. Individual becomes very restless. That is why in rehabilitation centers, people are admitted just to reduce the intensity of this restlessness. The withdrawal effects are very, very pathetic. Once an individual stops taking these drugs, it is not that easy to come out of that state or come back to the normal thing, because the side effects are here. Headache, chronic headaches will be there, dizziness, right? No more activeness. Individual will not be very active at all, right? And then restlessness. So chronic cocaine abuse has frightening visual. Frightening visual means hallucinations. You know, hallucinations. There are many people who perceive rope as snake, an average boy as beautiful. That means there is an emphasized error in perception. Basically, guys, I'll tell you, these drugs actually alters our sensory organs, senses. We have 5 senses, correct? Very often I tell you in the class that we have 5 senses, that gustatory, visual, auditory, right, tactile. All these senses gets elevated under euphoric state, 4 to 6 hours. But after that, you get hallucinations, like senses will not work properly. Right? You get frightening visuals. That's why these people are very scary. They take themselves away. They aloof from the society, you know, because of these things. And auditory and tactile hallucinations. They feel that somebody has touched here. Somebody is touching. Somebody is fondling my body. Right? And they could listen to the voices which normal people cannot. Auditory hallucination, emphasized in perception. These are the severe effects of chronic cocaine abuse, right? See here, cocaine stimulates cortex of brain, inducing sleep and excitement and accentuating sexual feelings. This is where youngsters are going wrong here. When people take cocaine, it actually stimulates our brain. There is a cortex. I've already told you in the class. Let me repeat that. You know, why do we get this pleasure when an individual take alcohol or induce drugs? You know, there are certain pathways inside our brain. So those pathways are like mesocortical, dopamine, limbic pathways. So this limbic system of our brain is responsible for our libido, that is sexual gratification. If your limbic system is not working properly, that means you are not gratifying your sexual urges. Here what happens, the chronic use of cocaine will stimulate the cortex. The cortex, you know, which is responsible for our emotions, comprehension, sensory, especially auditory and visual informations, right? So these senses will get altered, and individual experiences like sleepiness, very excitement sometimes, very excited, and strong sexual feelings. In the nashe mein kuch kar diya, that's the famous thing, no? When an individual is under the nasha, that state, so he doesn't know that why and what is happening around him, because his or her senses are not under his control or her control. It's a problem. And then, yeah, many money related problems due to dependence on cocaine. Usually you guys don't get money at home because till the age of 18, you will be under the surveillance of parents. They check very often, what do you do? Why do you do this? Then people started doing violent, means anti-social behaviors. These behaviors can be related to anti-social behaviors, right? They start stealing money, right? So many people, you would have heard, no, many people are put behind the bars because of silly reasons. So they found, police would have found some drugs, all these cases related. See here, the chances are, they are vulnerable for this sexual pleasure, sex with anonymous people in exchange for cocaine. We have seen We have evidences for this. Just for the crawl, they crawl for the drugs to get that highness. So they do all these unethical things. Next. And then amphetamines. Next. So these are the amphetamines. So inhalant to relieve stuffy noses. Actually, it was used in 1927 to release the stuffy noses. When you have a severe cold and all, these amphetamines were given by the doctors or physicians. Later, it was converted into drug, right? So in 1930s, introduction of methadone, meth. So called the term meth. It's very popular, no, among you guys. Meth. The drug is called meth. It's a chemical, right? So it's very speed, considered more dangerous, and dexedrine also. It has been banned from the medical field. So considered wonder pills, help people stay alert and awake and function temporarily at a level beyond normal. Beyond normal. We need, the biological clock needs 8 hours of sleep, at least 6 to 8 hours, normal people. But when you take this wonder pills, and they were wonder pills, so people sleep beyond normal timings. Very sleepy, drowsiness will be there, always on the bed. It's very tough to wake them up because they are not in the conscious actually. Their senses are altered, right? The rhythm, what do you call it? The circadian rhythm, sleep cycle will get disturbed. Okay. And then actually it was used in during World War II, used by soldiers to ward off fatigue, so that it makes you more alert. No, it makes you more alert, right? So, but the withdrawal effect, after effects are very severe. It actually, the people who want to lose weight, they use this drug. It reduces appetite, right? You will not have to crawl for food, right? It has a control on your hunger. That means it has a control on your instinct, basic instinct, hunger. These are all needs, no? Biological needs. Food, hunger, thirst, sex. These are all biological needs. It will have a huge impact on these biological primary needs. Yeah, it can increase our BP, blood pressure, to the point of immediate death. If excess use of this methadone can lead to a lethal things, death can happen, immediate death, right? Because it alters our CNS, central nervous system. It blocks, right? Yeah, chronic abuse is like amphetamine, psychosis, similar to paranoid schizophrenia. So most of the guys here, they actually do not know what exactly the schizophrenia is. It is very popular term nowadays. There are many movies on this schizophrenia. It's a psychotic disorder, right? Schizophrenics are, according to me, I always tell that schizophrenia is such a beautiful disorder. The many famous, the very creative people has one or the other symptoms of schizophrenia. According to research, even Einstein has one of the symptoms of schizophrenia, right? So these guys, schizophrenia is what compiled of striking features of this symptoms of schizophrenia is delusions and hallucination. Delusions we have already discussed. So emphasized error in perception, that is hallucination. Delusions, emphasized error in thought process. These guys think that I'm Jesus Christ, I'm Mother Teresa, I can create a world where there is no pain, calmness, that kind of. This is also called paranoid grandeur, self-appreciation, grandiose. Along with this, these guys have other associated symptoms also, like depression is common, anxiety is common, poor hygiene, cognitive slippage. Cognitive slippage is like they cannot think properly, they cannot comprehend the things properly, no perception. And these guys, very peculiar symptoms are like, these guys believe, delusions. Somebody has inserted a microchip inside my brain. Through remote control, they are controlling my behavior. And they can talk to the people whom a normal cannot see. They can hear. Their auditory hallucinations are very more in schizophrenia. Excess use of this chronic, amphetamines can, that means keeping oneself away from the external world, psychotic disorders, right? Next, sedatives. Yes, yeah, barbiturates, are one of the powerful sedatives developed in 1930s. Okay, so it has been banned actually. Used to calm patients and induce sleep. It was used as a drug, medicine, to calm down the what? Patients, to induce sleep. If a patient do not get a sleep, then they used to give this barbiturates and sedatives. So it acts as depressant, somewhat like alcohol. It depresses your CNS, again, central nervous system. Okay, so shortly after taking a barbiturate, person experiences feeling of relaxation in which tension seems to disappear, and then a tendency towards drowsiness and sleep. Immediate effect is this: if you take this barbiturates, you feel stress free, tension free. You feel like very light, no tensions, no worries, right? And it precedes with drowsiness and sleep. Okay, effect: impaired decision making and problem solving, sluggishness, slow speech, sudden mood shifts. These are the effects. So last under these drugs is hallucinogens. Yes. So drugs thought to induce hallucinations. Here, in fact, does not create sensory images but distort them. So individual sees or hears things differently and unusual ways. Psychedelics. Psychedelics. A normal phenomena would look very for these guys. Very different, unusual way, abnormal way, right? It might not have a huge impact on our senses, but still it has a huge impact on our perceiving things unusual way, right? Then major drugs are LSD, lysergic acidic diethylamide, also called as acid, odorless, tasteless, and colorless, produces intoxication with amount smaller than a grain of salt. If you take a grain of salt, this LSD, it produces intoxication in the body. Okay, that is LSD. And then we have, after taking LSD, about 8 hours of sensory perception, mood swings and feelings, depersonalization or attachment would happen. I tell you, this depersonalization is like, there are many forms of depersonalization. One is gender identity. Okay, self-identity crisis. These are the two forms. Gender identity crisis, like whenever the individual takes this LSD, he forgets which gender is he or she, female or male. Sometimes what happens under this influence, amnestic fugue can also happen. You know, amnestic fugue, like in this, what happens? Depersonalization happens, like detaching oneself from oneself. I detach myself. I forget my identity, my name, my religion, my occupation, right? My living things, my society, my culture, everything. I start wandering around a region. Maybe I would have traveled 100, 200, 500 kilometers, right? And then I would have started a new life there. I might start a new life in the name of some other religion, profession as a mechanic. I was a teacher, I started a profession of mechanic. After 6 months, all of a sudden, I realized, what the hell am I doing here? See, depersonalization, how depersonalization works, right? And then, yeah, it can be extremely traumatic, distorted objects and sounds, illusory colors and new thoughts can be menacing and terrifying. So it's hallucinations. It alters our sensory, senses. Okay. Next is mescaline and psilocybin. These are the drugs under this. So it's a form small disc-like growths at the top of peyote cactus. Okay, right? So psilocybin from variety of sacred Mexican mushrooms, you know, magic mushrooms you use now, right? And then used for centuries for ceremonial rites. Actually, it was used for ceremonial rites centuries. It has a history. So it alters mind altering and hallucinogenic properties. So it enabling an individual to see, hear, and otherwise experiences events in unaccustomed ways. The expanded consciousness can be seen. What is this conscious? That means the boundary of consciousness will enhance. Once individual takes this, he can look beyond the consciousness, right, to certain extent. But after effect is very severe. Next. The last, ecstasy. So this is how actually drug looks like. Ecstasy. These are the pills, no? Happy pills, we say, right? On the pills, there is writing like love. There is a birds. Actually, sometimes it will be like this, danger thing. So there are symbols for this. Heart shape will be there, symbol on the tablets. So people use this. It's a both hallucinogen and stimulant, popular as party drug. You know, party drug, when you people go for a party, it's very popular in parties. It is known as party drug. Okay, right? Supposed to be sold as a diet pill. In 1913, it was sold as a diet pill, but it did not market it due to side effects. Okay, see, 20 minutes after having ecstasy pill, after taking this love pills, right, party drug, what happens? Person experiences a rush sensation followed by feeling of calmness, energy, and well-being. See, you might be asking that, sir, taking drugs actually leads to happiness, well-being, the rush, since you become more alert, right? Your conscious awareness becomes enhances actually. So the problem here is after taking this drug, the withdrawal effect and after effects are very severe, right? And then last for several hours, this kind of thing, and report an intense experience of color and sound and mild hallucinations. High levels of energy and excitement will be there. But along with this, hallucinations are very dangerous psychotic disorders, hallucinations. Next. It is not as addictive as cocaine, but studies shows prevalence of panic disorder, prolonged psychosis, impairment of memory, cerebrovascular injury, and other psychological health consequences of usage of this ecstasy. You know, this panic disorder, panicking, the irrational thoughts, irrational panicking, like something wrong is going to happen, like anxiety, phobias, panicking, panic disorders, or with agoraphobia, some kind of specific phobia, social phobias will be there under this. Next, Mariana. No, this is how it looks. This is a plant-based drug. This is how actually, when it is dried, this is how it looks actually. See, so it's a mild hallucinogens, and from leaves and flowers, tops of the hemp plant, cannabis sativa. This is a plant we get. Okay. Next. Yes. Okay. Now this Mariana, what happens here? It alters your STM. You know what is STM? What is STM? Short-term memory. We have long-term memory, short-term memory, and working memory, right? Sensory memory. It alters your short-term memory very badly. That means the information is going to be stored for 15 to 25 seconds. That information processing will not happen if you consume this Mariana. Under short-term memory, one segment called working memory. You know working memory? You go to a hotel, a restaurant, right? You are 10 people. A waiter comes to you and takes the order. 10 different orders would be given to the waiter, right? So he will be passing along the order to the next chief chef. So 2 juices, 2 biryanis, like that. So here, visuospatial sketchpad works. That waiter will be assuming how many are sitting around the table. This is called visuospatial sketchpad. Where are they? How many have ordered what dish? What juice? How many fruit salad? Visuospatial sketchpad. He will plan. He has his own blueprint, strategy, where to place all the dishes. Visuospatial sketchpad. And then rehearsal loop. He'll rehearse it. How many sandwiches, how many burgers, how many juices, how many orange juices? Rehearse it, no? 2 juices, 2 masala dosa, 2 biryanis. That. comes under working memory, and then execution level. So he comes with the order, he plays it. This kind of phenomena, memory process will not work, will be disturbed. Wake him up, will be disturbed. Okay, so that's the right. So of Morian. Now, guys, the problem is, now the question you might be asking, you can ask the question like, most of the countries, around 13 countries, developed countries, have made use of drugs to certain extent, or certain drugs as legal. They have legalized the use of drugs. Right? You can Google it. 13 countries. We don't know, because maybe the reason is maybe they generate more revenue, or these drugs can be used as medicines, effective medicines, to calm down certain psychotic disorders or hallucinations, certain things. Okay, so now there are reasons why do people get into this. Is actually the real fact. Now we have got the first part, like what are the drugs, important drugs that youngsters are going for. So I have not touched the alcohol abuse. That is a totally different world. Alcohol abuse. Here, reasons. The first reason is peer pressure and social influence, it seems. You people, youngsters know, bro, I've tasted this. Let's try once. Right? You use this, right? So peer pressure is one of the major reasons why do youngsters are getting into drugs. Right? Then escape or self-medication. Fight or flight mode. There are two. Whenever we encounter with a situation, there are two responses. One is fight. Another one is flight, escape. When an individual not able to manage his or herself or encountered or solve the problems, then definitely they go for this. They seek a shelter under this drugs. And then, of course, academic or performance pressure, due to pressure, people go for this. And then coping with trauma, anxiety, depression, and other underlying mental health issues. People use this. It's just stress, inevitable, an adjustive demand. Stress is an adjustive demand. If an individual not able to cope up with the stress, then obviously people will be under severe pressure, right? Severe pressure. And then people want to seek a help when there are no one, family, no emotional backup, peers, no emotional backup, no good friends, then obviously they seek satisfaction under the drugs, the umbrella called drugs. Okay, right? Media influences, of course, but change. But I think the major reason why do people, especially youngsters, teenagers, get into this drug is ecstasy, euphoria, to experience that happiness, pleasure, right? Curiosity. Out of curiosity, most of the youngsters would fall into this category, right? You just want to try it once, right? I want to experience it. Once you taste that, once you start tasting it, then it becomes very chronic. You become habituated to that kind of thing. It becomes an habit. It's not that easy to come out of it. Drug abuse, right? And astonishingly, there are 9 facts. I've got some through research. I've got some 9 facts on drugs and youngsters. Actually, the first fact is nearly half of college students use illicit drugs. You know this? Teen drug use is common among college students. According to 2016, 45% of male college students and 42% of female college students used an illegal drug. They are into drug. Even the whitener is a drug nowadays, right? Glue is a drug. Wall paint, the Asian paint, people go and scratch, children taste, they say it's a drug. It alters their object permanence capacity. Next. The second fact is that children and teens or youngsters who use alcohol and drugs are more likely to have a substance use disorder as adults. This is the fact. See, if you start using alcohol, right, so you will end up with using drugs, right? So according to a report by Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration, this is 74% of adults participating in a substance abuse treatment program started using alcohol or drugs before the age of 17. Imagine 17, just you will be passed out of 10th standard and you are in +2, I think. So at the age of 17, if you start using alcohol, so definitely in future you land up with most that you are vulnerable to drug abuse. That's the point here. Okay. So furthermore, those who began using at 11 years old or younger were more likely to have multiple addictions, right? Like or tobacco, smoking, then alcohol, and then drugs. Any one of the drugs. Next. Right. The third fact is there is a clear link between depression and substance abuse. We use this term now very often, like I'm depressed, right? Depression has a significant positive correlation, right, with drug abuse. If you start using chronic use of drug will lead to a severe depression, right? Once you get into severe depressive episodes, so you might land up with any of the personality disorders. That is also research shows. Personality disorders, right? Paranoid, schizotypal, OCD, narcissistic, histrionic, depressive. Then comes sexual variants, right? Sexual personality disorders. We have voyeurism, fetishism, masochism, sadism. These are all personality variants actually, which are from the expectation or normality. See, one depression might take you to severe disorder, personality disorder. Of course, there are other reasons also, but this is one of the reasons, major reasons. Next. Marijuana use is at a 30-year high among college students. In 2016 survey, now, so when we compared with 30 years back down the lane, so the use of marijuana has increased highly, very highly, according to 2016 survey. See, so youngsters are become victims, maybe because of ignorance, maybe because of awareness, I don't know. Somewhere we need to tap these attitude, right? So furthermore, drug use in teens goes up in states, United States, with medical marijuana laws compared to state without them. In 2016, 38% of high school seniors in states have used this marijuana. 38% has increased in 2016. Next. The next fact, teens don't recognize the risk of smoking marijuana regularly. They don't recognize. They just want that kick at that time. No, you take marijuana in the form of weed, this one, you smoke, right? So these are the symptoms that you are undergoing, but you don't realize it. Your change in mood changes. You people use them. Mood swings are there because of the use of marijuana. Mood swings. I cannot concentrate on one thing. My mood will not be very stable, right? And then impaired memory. Of course, you cannot remember, you cannot recall, you cannot store the information properly. No way, because your central nervous system has been depressed. No information processing. And then we have cognitive difficulties. Thinking and problem solving, no thinking will be there. Whenever you need to have a thinking, like it's a conclusion, no? It's a conclusion, problem solving behavior. Thinking and problem solving are related. No, this cognitive high abilities, no. Distorted one, disturbed thinking. And then coughing, lung infections, faster heart rate happens, hallucinations and paranoia, depression and anxiety, suicidal thoughts in teens. Next. The sixth fact is alcohol is a substance most widely used by teenagers or youngsters. It's a sedative, strong sedative, as well as stimulant also, right? So 61% of high school students have consumed alcohol by the end of their high school. 23% have consumed alcohol by 8th grade, it seems. So just imagine when they come to young age, by then they would have finished many cases, right, of beers and all, alcohol, right? 46% of 12th grade have been drunk at least once in their lifetime. 46%. Right? The 9% of 8th grades have been drunk at least once in their life. Next. The 7th one is like binge drinking is a rare problem among college students. According to the last 10 years of data from the Monitoring the Future survey, 8 college students, 12% reported having 10 or more drinks in a row at least once in 2 weeks. 2 weeks, 2 types. See, 10 or more drinks in a row. Furthermore, males are more likely to drink, go for binge drinking. Males, when we compare it with women, gender differences. Next. Okay. Then substance abuse also includes using legal medications without a prescription. We use certain drugs, no, for enhance our concentration, attention, heroin, cocaine, the marijuana, all these things, right? Crack version of cocaine, without consulting a physician or doctor, like a medication we use. Next. Next. To stay awake whole night, you want to go. Staying awake to study longer, being able to party later in the night and consume more alcohol, keeping weight off, to reduce your weight. People use drugs or alcohol, being alert in class or at work after not getting much sleep. Like we use tea, no. Normal people use to tea, wake up throughout the night, but these people go for this drugs, alcohol. Next. The last one is teen substance use can be deadly, right? So there is a risk of sudden death. There is a risk of sudden brain death, right? If you use excessive substances or stimulants or drugs, the impact is very bad, very pathetic, and it can lead to deadly effects. Like, see, nationwide, the drug overdose death rate has more than doubled during the past decade among people aged, see, the age 12 to 25. Youngsters are becoming very victims for this. Young adults aged 19 to 25 are particularly at the risk for a fatal overdose, the report said. Okay, next. So this is all about the facts and why do people actually get into drugs. Now, if your niece or if your nephew is using, or in future you are going to be a future parents, right? So how to identify the drugs when your children or kids are using drugs? So how to identify? I don't know, because I'm not a user of drug. I'm not aware of how do they look like. How do you identify the drug, right? First, see here, marijuana. How to identify the drug here? It's from the cannabis sativa plant, one of the most common drug used by teens. 1/3 of 10th graders and 44%. So let's not get into this. See here, the leaves have serrated edges and tend to fan out like the fingers of a hand. All right. If your friends or if your kids have this kind of leaves in their books, in their bags, that means they are into drugs. They have started taking marijuana. Okay. It is usually dried leaves. They use dried leaves so that they can make joints out of it and they smoke. Okay. Right. Cannabis is a plant from looks like shredded leaves, stem, seeds, or flowers stored in plastic bags. Usually these plants or leaves are stored in plastic bags. So the material is usually green or brown in color and it might look like tobacco. So that means it's a dry marijuana leaves. If you find a kid with this kind of substance, that means he or she is using a marijuana. It's a drug. Next, cocaine. It's a powdered version of cocaine. Is sold in tiny glass vials with colorful lids or little bags. Cocaine in the powder form. The crack version of cocaine contains powder cocaine mixed with water and ammonia or a baking soda. Baking soda, this mixture is heated until the water is removed, leaving behind tiny crystals of the drug. So these crystals are typically an off-white color and look a bit like rocky candy. Rocky candies, like a salt of this one. So they look like this. So that means they are using cocaine. This is how we need to identify the drugs. Next. LSD. See here? It's very interesting, peculiar. Here, LSD, known as acid, is a hallucinogen that teens may use as a party drug. And it's sold in liquid form, tablets, saturated sugar cubes, okay, or blotter paper divided into small squares, printed with colorful pictures of political figures, smiley faces, animals, or sports logos, with each square representing one dose. If your kids or your friends have these things in their bag, that means they are into LSD. They are using hallucinogens, right? Next. Magic mushrooms. No? So here it's a man-made substance. So they are usually sold in a dried format, and the packets may contain multiple mushroom caps as well as thin stems. Yes, next. So ecstasy, as I've already told you, that this looks like happy pills, party drug, happy pills, on which love symbol will be there, heart symbol will be there, dove symbol will be there, some cross, some danger symbols will be there. So it's like a pills, right? If they have in a bottle or a plastic bottle in a packet, that means they have LSD, ecstasy. Next. Heroin, you know this, so brown or black powder contained in folded pieces of paper, okay, right, in envelopes. Next, sir. This we don't need. Next. Yes. So these are all the ways to identify or people if they are using drugs or not. So these are the ways to identify that. This works as a guide for parents actually, right? You can actually educate your neighbors, your known people, how to find drugs if their kids are using, or if they suspect that their kids are into drugs, how to find out the drugs. Okay. So next, I think I have already explained this, how these drugs have an impact on a behavior in terms of social life, biological life, personal life. Biological life, we have already discussed hallucinations, delusions, or sensory altered senses, right? They don't even have other senses also, right? There are other senses I've told you, right? Common sense, no common sense, civic sense, they don't know how to behave in a society, in a community, right? Nonsense, they are really good at. Nuisance, some are good at. So nano sense, to forget. We are not equipped. Normal people are not equipped with nano sense. What's happening around us, we are not aware of it, right? So these are the drugs and youngsters. Now the question was, why do people use drugs? The answer is just the primary answer, out of curiosity and to get that ecstasy, highness, euphoria. And I'll tell you guys, see, initially everything looks beautiful, everything looks elevated and high. You people feel that your what do you call, concentration, attention, your consciousness, everything has got enhanced. But slowly, gradually, when these things get saturated, right, it's going to be very pathetic. The withdrawal effect, after effects are very pathetic. Okay, so I end my session. Now I'm ready to take any questions from your side. So any questions or queries you can ask. Good.
So, sir, you mentioned that mostly teens and children
Ah.
have these issues. So, what would you advise someone who has gone into alcohol or drugs at a very young age because they don't understand it's wrong at that point?
It is not, yeah, because it is not only me. I'm not the only one who is accountable for this kind of society. I think all of us, no, all of us need to educate them. First thing, this awareness should be induced into our curriculum system. First thing, at the early age of education, if they come to know what are the pros and cons of using drugs, then definitely we can avoid these things. This is my opinion, right? Through education only, awareness, right? Then emotionally people should be very strong. So most of the people who get drug addictors are you just go through their history of present illness or the thing. So only thing we find is that it takes us to the root is emotional blunts. Either the parents are not in good terms, maybe single parenting, maybe the child is from parents who are divorced, right? And sometimes very bad childhood experiences, especially this sexual abuse, pedophilia, we call it as. So this might lead to seek satisfaction through drugs, right? We need to educate the people. I think there must be a system where and through which we need to educate the small kids, at least from early age, through education. That's the solution.
Thank you, sir.
So, sometimes amphetamines are administered to people who are like mentally ill or have chronic illness. Some amphetamines are actually administered to them. So, is it that only once if it's used in excess it's bad, or generally then why do doctors administer it?
Yeah. See, I have mentioned in the presentation, right? See, certain drugs are used to cure certain symptoms, intensity, to calm down the intensity, to induce sleep, to make the patient very calm, right? But as you said, with the prescription, under the doctor's prescription only, we have to take this drug to certain, the quantity is there. If we exceed the quantity, then obviously we'll end up with all these problems, no doubt in that. That is where there are certain countries have legalized the drugs, certain drugs, right? So people say cocaine is very harmful, but on the contrary, there are certain researches, it shows cocaine actually increases our memory power, our perception level, our attention and all. The contradictions are there, but still we could see the physiological problems the patient is undergoing, the people are undergoing. So better we take these kind of drugs under a physician prescription or a guidance. Next. Next.
But sir, according to some recent studies, it's been proven that addiction has a genetic cause.
Addiction?
Has a genetic cause to it.
Yeah.
So, how do people firstly recognize it? And secondly, what can they do like to overcome things like addiction when they have something as like when it is a genetic disposition for them?
It's a very good question, but see, answer is still people are searching for an answer for this. See, we cannot prove there is a genetic base, or we inherit certain traits from this kind of traits from our ancestors. But in one survey where I have read, I still remember the alcoholic trait. There is a gene called FIN, it seems, a chromosome or FIN, so which is responsible for this kind of attitude or what do you call approach or whatever it is, wish, right? So there are certain drugs, yes, of course, but we do not have that much of medical evidences to prove that there is a genetic factor which plays a important role of stage. Don't have it. That's it. Bharat, to take a photo. That's why I gave you the phone.
Sir, you said about the causes and effects of consuming various types of drugs. Sir, but if the person has got addicted to it, what suggestion you would like to give in order to make him stop using it?
So see, if a person is using drug, actually he's a drug abuser, like he's using drug, he's taking drug. That means we need to seek rehabilitation centers first, or a psychiatrist, or the concerned person. Then there are certain therapies, right, for this treatment. So when we know that person is going through these things, then we need to take them to mental asylums or rehabilitation centers. So there are specialists who try their best to reduce symptoms of these hobbies and all. So that is the only thing. There are medications, antidepressants. See, this is a problem with these drugs. If you use a drug as a medication, it certain diseases, certain disorders can be controlled, but excess use of the same drug can lead to many other things. For example, antidepressant. If you take antidepressant more, then you become more depressed, right? Obviously.
Sir, according to the research, recent statistics, everyone out of 10 is facing a depression. So if he or she is facing depression, is obviously like he's going to take that drug. What would you suggest him?
Yeah, depression is a very common phenomenon nowadays. All of us we are depressed sometimes. One or the other time we will become depressed. See, weather and moods are connected, right? I've already told you, there is a disorder called seasonal mood affective disorder. Seasonal mood affective disorder. Based on the season, our mood gets disturbed. Rainy season, very irritating. This is normal, right? If it exceeds certain duration, certain criteria, then it's a disorder. Depression is one among them. Depression means what? Losing interest in our daily activities. One day, fine. 2 days, fine. If it continues more than 4 weeks, then that person is considered as or diagnosed as depression or depressive episodes or disorders. Then we need to seek a psychiatrist or psychologist. There are assessments, there are treatments, medications, definitely. But depression is not that a big psychological disorder or illness which anybody can actually come out of this. It depends on the willness. That's it. Okay.
The microdosing on certain psychedelics increase creativity and productivity, problem solving skills. So can they still be considered harmful if people are actually working better on it?
That is what I've told you. If it is good for health, it depends on the quantity. See, LSD, if you take 1 grain of LSD, it might long for weeks. That euphoric state long for weeks. So it should be taken under a supervision. Supervision is very must, right? Individually, you cannot take. It is like one disorder is there, no somatoform disorder in our thing. Hypochondriasis is one of the disorders. Here, what happens? Individuals feels or perceives that all the big and dangerous illness like AIDS, leukemia, blood cancer, tumor, I have this kind of symptoms. Whatever the new symptoms prescribed in the medical journals, they feel that I have it. Without consulting a physician, these guys start taking the medication. That's very wrong. So we should take. Of course, there are certain drugs proved which enhances our creativity, our what do you call consciousness, our senses, alertness. Of course, in that case, caffeine is a drug. If you drink coffee, actually it is proved that our senses are become more alert. We become more alert. Simple. Okay. Fine. Thank you. Come. Yeah. No problem.
Thank you for the very informative session, sir. I would now like to call upon Professor B.B. Venkatesh to give us the vote of thanks.
Thank you, Professor Dr. Venugopalian, for a very enlightening PPT seminar come webinar on drugs and young minds. It is one of the most important, most needed topics of the day, no doubt about it. So you have done a wonderful job. Thank you very much. I thank all the students who have made a patient hearing, who have had a patient hearing and asked few questions, clarified some doubts, and I'm sure there will be many other doubts as well. And I also thank all the people who have joined the link on Zoom and YouTube, and they have been a part of it. The feedback form will be available for them. That is the webinar audience. The feedback form will be available in a week's time. The groups will be maintained, and it will be the Google form will be circulated, and soon after you fill up the Google form, you will be getting the certificates. Thank you very much. There is an important announcement for the audience who are on Zoom link and YouTube. The important announcement is my phone will be switched off in another 10 minutes. Don't trouble me for the feedback form. It will be available only after 1 week. The moment we are ready with the certificates, only then I will be circulating the Google form. Please cooperate. Thank you very much.